Your greatest leadership tool isn't a spreadsheet or a slide deck. It's inside you. The only question is, are you willing to listen to it? Intuition isn't about ignoring the facts. It's about integrating your full intelligence, your experience, your emotional awareness, and your subconscious pattern recognition with the data that's in front of you. It's a learnable skill that when you work on it, it lets you navigate complexity and uncertainty with more speed and confidence than anybody else who's just relying on just mere data. What's the sad part is that for far too long, we've been taught to see intuition as a liability in leadership, something that's soft, unreliable, even reckless. Studies show our gut instinct, when rooted in experience, is correct up to 95% of the time. This is the intuition paradox. It's the very thing we're often told to ignore in business is the same thing that most effective leaders use to make their biggest breakthroughs. And you can do that as well. Kodak and Blockbuster are the best examples on how over-relying on data and brushing aside your intuition will lead you to disastrous consequences for leadership and for the companies themselves. In 1975, a Kodak engineer invented the world's first digital camera. What did Kodak's leadership do? They buried the invention. The leaders at Kodak were terrified that if they actually introduced the digital camera to the world, it would be cannibalizing their current business, which was the film camera. What Kodak's leadership didn't think about was that yes, if they introduced the digital camera, they would be gutting and cannibalizing their current film camera business, but they would also be the first one in the digital camera business, and they could be the market leader again. But yes, they would actually have to cannibalize the business at the beginning. And just that rationality, when they were looking at the numbers, hey, we're the best in our business at the moment, we don't want to pivot because the cash cow that we currently have is gonna go away, and we're gonna have to invest more and more money into just marketing the new product, developing the new product even more. And what they failed to realize was that sooner or later, somebody else would be doing this. At the same time that the leaders at Kodak were making sure that the digital camera didn't see the light of day, along came Sony and Canon, whose engineers actually invented other digital cameras. And both of those companies actually launched the digital cameras. And what happened was that all of a sudden, Kodak's leading position as a market leader in film cameras plummeted down because everybody was switching to the digital camera since it was a new product, a better product, a far superior product. And what happened to Kodak? In 2012, it filed for bankruptcy. A similar thing happened to Blockbuster. So in the 90s and early 2000s, Blockbuster was a thriving VHS and a DVD rental business. Then Netflix came along. So there are two interesting things that happened here with Blockbuster and Netflix. So the first one is that Blockbuster had an opportunity to actually buy Netflix. I think it was on account of like $1 billion or something like that. Blockbuster's leadership said no, because their business model, while working in the same niche and the same industry, were a little bit different. Blockbuster actually got around 13% of their income on late fees, while Netflix didn't have late fees. At that time, Blockbuster was the market leader and a heavy market leader at that. Netflix was just an up-and-coming upstart, pretty much. But what the leaders at Blockbuster couldn't fathom was how fast the internet, how fast the industry would change. And because of that, clinging on to that 13% revenue that they got from late fees, and thinking that brick and mortar stores would actually be a lot more convenient for people, and that people wanted to go into those stores and check all of the movies and videos that they could actually rent or buy, they just couldn't fathom that Netflix would succeed. And just because of that decision making based on the data they had and based on the revenue and market position that Blockbuster had at the time, they didn't want to just invest $1 billion into Netflix, buy it and see where it goes. They said, no, thank you. And what happened later on was that Netflix became, it still is, a full-on streaming giant, and Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Let's look at Tim Cook. In 1998, he had a stable job at Compaq, while Apple was on the verge of failure and bankruptcy. Every rational person would tell you, hey, keep your stable job at Compaq. Don't join Apple because you never know if you're going to have a job in the next 1, 2, or 3 months. But there was something about Apple that Tim Cook just couldn't shake. His intuition, his gut feeling was telling him Apple is going to succeed. And then he jumped ship. Today, Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple, one of the most highly valued companies in the world. If we want to define intuition, intuition is our ability to understand something without conscious reasoning. This is our subconscious brain processing subtle patterns, body language, and past experience in a split second. It's like this. We can think about this as kind of like our inner radar. And what intuition does, it allows us as leaders and managers to act decisively under pressure, to solve problems creatively, and sense market shifts, people shifts, any kind of shifts of team dynamics as well before pretty much anybody else. It kind of looks like we have a superpower that we're just able to predict the outcomes, or we're able to predict what issues we're going to have to be solving in a week or a month or even a year from now. And most of the time people are like amazed, how did you manage to do that? I was listening to my intuition, to my gut instinct. I understand that my subconscious mind is way more powerful than my conscious mind, my reasoning mind. And I make sure that I trust it and that I follow its suggestions. Okay, so now that I've told you all of this, that I use intuition pretty much every day, I need to make one thing clear. I also use data. I just don't use intuition and throw the data out and it's like, hey, my intuition tells me this. I'm just going to be following it. No, I actually back up my intuition with data. This is what the best leaders actually do. We trust our intuition, but we back it up with data. We may not have the data at that moment, or we need to extrapolate the data to show that our gut instinct is actually right. But eventually, we're going to be gathering enough data and enough data points that our previous decisions, our gut instinct decisions, are actually going to be proven right. And we've also had plenty of experiences. I've been learning about leadership and how to lead people since I was 18. So it's been 19 years for me. I've got plenty of experiences to back up my gut feelings, and my gut feelings actually thrives because of that experiences. When I graduated from the US Military Academy, I was scared. In about a month or so, I was going to lead 20 or 30 people. And I didn't know if I had the abilities to do it. I went to my mentor and asked him, sir, I don't know if I can lead. I don't know that I have the abilities or the knowledge to lead 20 to 30 people. What if I make a mistake? What if I fail them? And he answered me, Blaj, we've trained you for 4 years how to be a leader. Trust your intuition, trust your gut instinct, and you're going to do great. And when I trust my gut and intuition, 90% of the time, it's right from the beginning. Whatever my intuition tells me at that point, at that time, right away, when I have to make a decision, is the correct one. Rationalization and why did this happen usually comes later on after day 2, or only when I'm reflecting on what went right, what went wrong, why did I make a decision like that? And then I start rationalizing it. Okay, it was because of this and this and this and this. It was because of point A, B, and C that I just didn't understand at that point. But my subconscious mind, my intuition, and my gut feeling understood this perfectly well. So your intuition and your gut feeling can be taught. And this is what we're going to be tackling next. There are 4 steps you can take immediately to start training your intuition. So the first step is that you just need to get experience. Your intuition is only good as the information it has to work with. Your subconscious is only as good as that. Try and actively seek out different situations. Read widely and seek out several different opinions, not only the ones that you actually agree with, but the ones that you don't agree with. Because your subconscious, your intuition to work effectively, it needs as many data points as it possibly can get. So the second step is that you need to practice active reflection. And these come into 2 different tiers. So the first tier, which you're probably not going to be able to use right away, especially if you haven't been using your intuition or gut instinct so far, is that when you're making a decision, when you have to make a decision, that you actually check what's your gut telling you. What are the emotions that I'm feeling right now? Just keep that in mind while you're making a decision. And then the second tier is pretty much that you go and you reflect on what your emotions were, what was your gut instinct telling you at that time of your active decision-making process. And combining these two together is going to give you a bunch of information, a bunch of experience that you're going to be subconsciously able to apply it later on to other situations, to other times when you're going to have to be making a decision, and you won't be able to rely on some data points or something that's going to be completely new. So the way I see it, active reflection is the key to my success to be able to have a great gut feeling, great intuition, because with active reflection, every single bit of experience translates into another touch point, another data point. And then building up from step 2, we go into step 3, is that we need to create space for silence, for silent reflection. And when I do that, what's happening is that my subconscious mind is analyzing all of the data points, key data points on what I did, whether I did it right or whether I did it wrong. What was my gut feeling telling me? What was my intuition telling me versus what I actually did? One of the things that I do with the silent reflection is I take time to actually have the schedule and the openings to do it, but then I let my subconscious mind decide if it wants to actually reflect on it or not, or if it wants to just think about and process something else completely unrelated. Because I can't force my subconscious mind to do a lot, since the subconscious mind is way more powerful than my conscious mind. And I let my subconscious mind flow, go with the flow. And for me, that's been the best use of my reflection time, my free space, and pretty much just creating myself a space for silence. So step number 4 is an overarching step, which is I always work on my emotional intelligence. So much of my intuition, my gut instincts come from me developing my emotional intelligence so that I understand what other people are feeling. When I get into a room, what's the situation? Is it intense? What is everybody else feeling? How is everybody else reacting into me walking in there? What do they want? Do they have an agenda? What is their body language and all of that stuff? Because our nonverbal cues are way more important than our verbal cues. A little bit confused? Welcome to the amazing part of emotional intelligence. So for me, emotional intelligence is a lifelong journey. I'm never going to be an expert. I'm never going to be great at it, but my goal is to improve my emotional intelligence day in, day out, and work on it as much as I can, because it's one of the things that it does separate great leaders from bad leaders. I pretty much use intuition in every decision that I have to make, but I've been using and developing my intuition for more than 19 years, and I trust it implicitly. I know that my intuition is going to guide me to a 90% plus effectiveness, into making 90% plus good decisions for myself and for others around me. If you're new into the intuition and trusting your gut feeling, here are the 3 areas you can start using it right away and develop it in an effective manner. Start using your intuition for everyday choices that may seem just generic for you. What does your gut instinct tell you? I should do this. And just do it. And then reflect on it later. This is how you're slowly going to be developing that instinct and those repetition points and data points, so that you can start trusting your intuition slowly and that you can start trusting it intrinsically. So the second one where your intuition can really help is in crisis management. If you've ever been in a crisis, everybody's pretty much panicking. Nobody knows what to do, or they're just so stressed that they're just waiting on somebody to do something. What most likely will happen is you won't have a week, a month, or 6 months to do a proper case study to gather all of the data. This is where the gut instinct comes along really well. And the third area where you can use your instinct is in innovation. The data that we have, it tells us about how the world is, what was happening before, because all the data is pretty much gathered from the past. But the intuition and instincts that tell us, hey, something's not right. I see this developing in 6 months to 12 months completely differently. You can start applying this intuition and how to innovate within your team. What does your gut instinct tell you? What should you change with your team so that it's going to be more productive? It's going to be able to gel as a team a lot better. How can you build trust better? Just go with what your instinct is telling you. You're going to be surprised by how much your instinct is actually right. If your instinct is really, really knocking at your door, hey, really do this, just go with the flow. Your instinct knows better than your conscious mind does. Without trusting our intuition, we're not trusting the strongest part of us, our subconscious, our best ability to be different from other people, so that based on our subconscious, our intuition, and our experiences, we can make decisions faster, better, and smarter than anybody else around us. Intuition is the most powerful and best asset that I have, and I trust it implicitly, even if other people are telling me to ignore it. I never do. And whoever tells me to ignore it, yes, I tend to ignore them because they have no idea what they're talking about.